Hi, I'm Ed Benham.
Hey Ed,
Hi.
welcome to White Point.
Thanks. Good to be back.
So you're here for our Mi'Kmaq Mawiomi,
Yep.
and you brought an incredible amount of or just a sample of your works. This is by no means the collection, is it?
No, there's a lot of pieces that have that are no longer in my possession that have just moved on to collections all over, everywhere really.
Fantastic. How long have you been carving?
Since around 1990, I believe, 90 or 91, somewhere in around that range. But before that, I did dabbled in a bit of other artworks, line drawings, a little bit of acrylics, a little bit of oils, that sort of thing.
Great. Now you have pieces here at White Point as well, don't you?
Yes, I have the commissioned carved paddles.
Yeah. So what are you working on today? What are you thinking you'll work on?
Really just going to do something simple, or simple to me at least anyways. Just going to start with a spiral, and just so that I'm working on something as people are passing by. I didn't really bring photos so that I have reference for a lot of the detailed work that I want to do. So with a spiral, it's just a continuous repetitive thing, so that's something that I can work on, and people can still get the idea of how it's done, at least anyways.
Can you tell us about this piece?
The eagle was probably done maybe a couple of years back, and originally I had carved it without the beak opened, and the more I looked at it, the more I realized it probably would be best to pierce carve it through, but I realized afterward that there's quite a bit of work in actually getting a tool that actually fits all the way through, and then to paint it and to shape it as you go. It's a little more work to kind of work on the inside of something with just very minimal space.
What's your favorite piece that you have here with you today?
I would say probably this piece, the wolf. And that's really mostly because I think it's one of the pieces that I've had the longest. It's one of the first pieces that I've done that was really heavily detailed. Some of the stuff was detailed prior to this, but rarely ever painted, so the paint added to the detail a little bit. So, and it's a piece that I decided quite a number of years ago, actually probably not long after I finished it, that it would be a piece I'd always keep and maybe pass down through the family, and hopefully it will be around for generations long after I am.
And you're just recently back from a show in Ontario. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I was invited to do similar to what I'm doing here at the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. So I went there. I believe it was on the 18th, I think, of August, and I was artist in residence there for 9 days, and traveled back, I believe, on the 25th or so, and really have just kind of come home and continued work on things that I already had in progress. There are several things that I worked on actually while I was there. All the stuff that doesn't have a finish on it yet was worked on in Toronto, and these pieces were there as well. Pretty much everything that was here except for the canes and that sort of thing was there on display.
And these are crooked knives?
Yeah. Traditional crooked knife, or in Mi'Kmaq it's Wahakinigan. And I guess, or I'm told, that the name comes from the fact that the handle is slightly curved and the blade is curved as well. So I'm assuming that's the reason for the name. And it's one of the few knives, I should point out, it's one of the few knives, other than maybe a farrier's knife or something like that, that is specifically made for either left or right hand. Just because it's a single draw knife and it's drawn toward the body generally rather than pushed away. But it can be used basically as the same way that you use a jackknife as well. I use this one quite a bit. That's an earlier piece that I probably did back in the early 90s. And I purposely made this one with a straight blade. And all it does is have just a slight spoon shape on the nose. And that you can use for interior carving, like inside carving or inside work. But the fact that this one has a straight blade allows me to do the spirals and that sort of thing. But it gives me much more control because it's not like a paring knife. The profile is pretty much not really much different, I guess, than a wood chisel, where the face is beveled and then the back is left flat. So it kind of coasts along the work more so than kind of forces its way in.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for being with us here at White Point for our Mi'Kmaq Mawiomi in honor of Mi'Kmaq History Month in Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Ulali.